And so, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Women of Empowerment. This is our session today that we're bringing to you live, which is each Saturday at 10 o'clock a.m. So, of course, we talk to women not just about the pews, but we go beyond the pews. I think we have a lot of issues in the church. We have a lot of issues where we feel that women just only supposed to be in the pews. They can't be successful. They cannot be an entrepreneur. They cannot be an author. But also, we as women, we have experienced some things in the past, and sometimes certain ethnicities or backgrounds will not, I guess, spotlight that in ministries and churches. So that's the reason why we're here, to be able to bring more to women so they can be able to understand another woman as to what they have been through, and they can be able to triumph and accomplish just as well as others. So welcome to the platform on this morning. She is our guest today, and it's none other than Santeraa Wilson. So welcome and hello.
Hi, hello. Thank you so much for having me on today, Diane. Thank you. I
Okay,
appreciate
we're
it.
going to get into it. So tell us a little bit about you before you became the coach and the speaker and what have you. Kind of take us down a little bit as from your childhood. You don't have to get into any critical traumas unless that's something that you want to share with the audience. But share with us a little bit as to from your start to as to where you became as a international speaker today.
Yes, so just from the start, I grew up in, with my family. I grew up in church my whole life. However, things happened. Um, I actually, for my first thing, I lost a best friend to gun violence. And then a couple of years later, just as my parents went through whatever marital issues they were having, I sought out love. And so seeking out love. And so I became a teen mom at the age of 15. And just coming up, I was married because I had got pregnant the second time. And, being in church, that's what you're supposed to do, right? That's what they say. And so I wound up marrying someone who was like atheist, and then, got divorced and
Oh,
married again and divorced. And it's just been a roller coaster. I went through a sexual assault and went through that process. And so many things have happened, which, why I am a trauma recovery coach, but I am still standing and I have survived the process of healing.
okay, great. So, in your own terms, how important is it for leaders in the church to be able to reach women in the church that have gone through traumatic issues, such as yours? Sometimes individuals have gone through domestic violence abuse. Sometimes individuals have, I'm just going to be honest, they have leaders and pastors that are in the pulpit and they, suffer through abuse as well through that. So, what would you say to women in regards to how to triumph over that?
I would say that, first of all, it is necessary to go through the process. It's okay to stop. We know that the Bible tells us that Christ was operating in ministry and his friend Lazarus died. And when Lazarus died, Jesus stopped. The Bible says Jesus wept. And so it's very essential for us to know that we need to stop sometimes to process whatever it is that we're going through, despite whatever title that we hold. And so even after Christ processed his grief, his emotions, then he continued in ministry, even though he knew the outcome was going to be. He knew he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead, right? But he still stopped. He showed that self-care is definitely essential and that it's okay not to be okay at moments in our life.
So that's very well put because he did. He cried and what have you. And so sometimes individuals, I was talking to a particular individual that was in a clergy position. And so the first tone that he brought to me, he was like, well, you can't never let the enemy see you sweat, but we can sob sometimes. I feel that if we hold in our emotions, that will even create a more worse barrier on the inside of us. So, and so that's the reason why, people have gone through trauma, but they can't talk about it and what have you. And so, women such as yourself, I applaud you for stepping out of the boat in order to be able to
Thank you.
encourage women on another level, as well as Christian, as well as inspiring, because it don't always have to be a Christian thing. You can inspire women and still be a Christian woman. I try to help people to understand that when we're in ministry, it's not all about, you don't have to talk about God all the time. We don't have to beat people down with we don't have to go that path. All we have to do is show love. I feel that the person will, thank you, God, they will see the Christ in us. They will see
Yes.
the movement that we have on the inside of us if we portray what it is that we're walking on the inside from the outside. So I just wanted to, I'm going to get stirred up, and so I'm going to go to the next question. So in regards to that, so when you begin to see from where God had brought you from, even as to now, what was your thrive as to wanting to be able to help women in different diversity of ways?
Yes, so the Bible teaches us that we are one body fitly joined together. And we are helpers of one another. Iron sharpens iron. I am not supposed to take what I've gone through and just live. I'm supposed to reach back and help somebody else out. That's why we're here. We are codependent. We're not built to be independent. We're codependent. Number one, codependent on Christ, and two, codependent on each other. So I would be remiss if I didn't go back and help somebody else to become a victor in Christ. The Bible says, he who the Son has set free is free indeed. So we all should be walking in the freedom of Christ.
Right, absolutely. So we want to get into your coaching. We want to get into how you coach women, and what type of women do you I don't know if I should use the word, what type of women do you that is compelled to your brand? We'll say on a daily basis, or maybe a weekly basis, or a monthly basis. What type of women are brought to the table towards your brand that you offer for women?
So doing trauma recovery coaching, we know that trauma is anything that disturbs the normalcy of your life. And so everyone, I am in position to assist everyone. A lot of times I deal with people in leadership, entrepreneurs, because a lot of times they're the ones who are burying the thing that was meant to keep them bound, those emotions, and they're operating, but they're like, wait, I can't even fully work in the capacity of my ministry, my leadership, because I had these things that I've been scared to talk about, or I've gone to counseling and it really didn't help. And so let's work through this process together. And so those are the people that I tend to work with, but I do not turn anyone away, even if we just have one or two sessions. It's not about just the business. It's really just about seeing people free.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. So explain and define to the audience a little bit about coaching. A lot of times words like that will frighten individuals. Sometimes Christian people get frightened about just words like business or coaching, or that sometimes individuals may feel that church is not a business or what have you, but in the book of Isaiah chapter 9, it did say that the government will be on his shoulder. And sometimes we don't know how to expand that. We don't know how to expand the word government. We think government is just government in the heavens. He's governor down here on earth as well. So God puts together and crafts businesses for us down here on earth as well. So we want you to be able to share that a little bit, so women can also be able to be comfortable with the word coaching. A lot of times we don't understand. Sometimes individuals have not been taught in Christian ministry as to open up. We have this closed mind mechanism where it's all about just one specific thing, and we don't know how to expand in other avenues. So share a little bit about that with us.
Yes. So coaching is not counseling. And I think a lot of people got confused. They feel like when they come, I'm just pouring out, you're going to listen, and that's it. Coaching is empowering someone to get past their stuck place, their place of where they feel like they haven't been able to get past. And so we talk strategies, we talk accountability, to hold you responsible for the decisions that you decided to make. If there's distractions, let's see how we could work through it. And so that's all it is. It's having someone walk alongside you as you go through whatever process that you're going through. There are many coaches out there. So you have to find the coach that actually fits for you. I have a lot of people who are in Christendom who are saved, and they, want to coach. And so we'll coach from coaching standpoint as well as a faith standpoint. Then I have people who aren't believers who I coach. And I still uphold my standard. I believe that Christ is Emmanuel working through me and through example and through my lifestyle. That's the witness that I bring to them.
Right. That's very perfect as to what you said. You have to be able to open the door for both sides. You have to open it up for Christians. You have to have it open for non-Christians. Even with the non-Christians, they may come to the Christianity side. So it's always good to be able to be, a little, just like I say, a little open with whatever it is that we do as a organization, as an entity, or if we're trying to empower, or if we're trying to compel individuals to our brand. So great. So tell us a little bit about your international ministry as to how you speak and what are some strategies that you use even when you go to other locations that are not of the U.S. I read your bio, and I think that you minister in certain other locations as well. So tell us a little bit about that, and then how rewarding that is for you.
I absolutely love speaking. So I tend to do a lot of platforms where we're talking about healing, and sometimes we talk about trauma. Sometimes I talk about whatever experience that I've gone through. And normally before I speak, I will ask, okay, what's the type of platform? What can I say? What can I say? Because again, everybody's platform is different. But I've been blessed to be able to speak openly about my faith, and to speak openly about the Lord, and to talk about, what he's brought me through or how he's brought me through it. Realistically, I believe that church and coaching, church and counseling go hand in hand. So sometimes when you're explaining things, I always tell people, like, coaching is fine, church is fine, but sometimes you need to go sit on the sofa. And so because I speak from that standpoint, I'm able to reach a multiple facet of people. Hurt is hurt no matter where you go. And so dealing with trauma is trauma. And so speaking on different platforms to other countries. I just was in a healing summit with leading ladies last weekend, where they were in the UK and also in Africa. And again, we've all experienced the same type of trauma. And so we all hurt the same. So we're all relatable on that level.
Absolutely. So here's another question to also bring to the table, and it's kind of catered around our audience as to what perhaps they have gone through and what they have suffered. And of course, we want to talk about it. We want to talk about domestic violence, even when it comes in the church. A family member had shared with me some years ago that, and just hear the story out, and I'm going to kind of skip over some things and what have you. So today, the individual is like maybe 70 years old. You're full of anger. You're full of a lot of hostility. This individual had did something to her in the church that had a very high, powerful position in ministry. She went and told her mother was high profile in the ministry. And when she went and told her mother what had happened to her from this individual that was profiled in this denomination, the mother did not believe her. So this caused her to go through life. She never was healed. Some denominations never opened up for women, where women can be able to talk about certain things. And so right today, she still has the same hostility. She still has the same rational attitude. She still has the same rational mentality and whatever. She has not been able. She told me a few years back, maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, she said, I forgave the individual, but you're still, that harshness is still there. And I feel that once you forgive someone that has done something to you, I would think that the other stuff would go away too. Don't you think?
Yes. So I went through the same thing. When I was sexually assaulted, I felt like I forgave this individual, and I was moving on with life, and I was moving on. So I thought. And 13 years later, I sat in church and my pastor preached about forgiveness. And I really had to say, did I really forgive, or did I really suppress the feelings that I was feeling at the time just so that I could move forward? Because that's what culture teaches us. It teaches us just forget about it, move on, keep going. They're going to get theirs. They're going to get karma. They're going to get this. They're going to get that. And so we don't truly forgive. What we do is we suppress the feelings. And how do you know that you suppressed it? You know that you suppressed it when you still have red flags, when you're still dealing with anger, when that time of the year comes around and you getting triggers, when somebody offends you, but they really are apologetic because they really didn't mean it, but you're holding them responsible because of what someone else did, because you're relating that situation back to your assault and your offense that you originally had. And those should be your flags that I did not forgive. So number one, you have to forgive yourself. You have to forgive yourself. And I think self-forgiveness is key. It's not that you've done something, but sometimes you sit there and be like, I shouldn't have went there. I shouldn't have did this. I should have did this. I should have did that. And so now you're blaming yourself. So number one, you have to forgive yourself. And then you forgive the individual. And when you forgive the individual, it's not forgetting what happened to you, because those are the lessons that we take and we go back to other people. We help bring them forward. It's actually releasing the emotions that were tied to the offense so that you can walk in a freedom and a liberty, so that your testimony, you can overcome with your testimony, right? Others can be healed by your testimony, but you're no longer carrying the offense and the emotions that's attached to what happened.
Mhm. Absolutely, because I think that that would be a lot of energy for a person to still be walking around. They're still living, she's still living, and she's still carrying around either her his guilt or what have you. He is allowed, and and so and I don't want to bring up who the person is because if they perhaps maybe want me to share their identity on this, but to me, it's like she's still he's probably done forgot about it or done gone on. His mind is probably on something else. But it seems like something was transferred. Okay, you still have not gotten free, and now you're still carrying this individual's burden. He done gave it over to you. He done dropped his burden off on you, and so now she's still not free and stuff. I think she's about 70 or 72 today, and she's still going through the same thing. Still, she's right about everything, and if you disagree with her and stuff, it's she's charged way up here and what have you and things. And so sometimes some people you have to just sometimes people will never ever be able to drop some trauma that they have been through in their lives. It's kind of sad though, to the point that we are so spiritual that we don't stop to take the time to listen to our own children. You know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We have to, and again, we have to learn that a lot of times people say, I've survived through this to try to move past it. But what I'm learning from walking in the walk that God has predestined for me is that people, we don't like to survive the true healing process. We like to get to a point of it so that was just enough for us to move forward. But we don't like to complete the process, because in the midst of that process, we're going to cry, we're going to be mad, we're going to be angry, we're going to scream, we're going to pull our hair out, we're going to question who we are, what we are. Is God really real? How do you let this happen? Like, there's so many questions while you're going through that process. But when you come out and you're walking in that freedom and in that liberty, boy, oh boy, I tell you, the freedom that you walk in, the peace of God that you sense, that you experience, where you can be like, look back and say, the thing is, you got to get it out. And that's why I always say, my thing is releasing my secret. What people like, what's the secret? The secret is the things that we bury that's meant to keep us bound. Those issues, those areas that we don't want to allow God to come in. And I've heard it best that a lot of times we cannot embrace the intimacy, full intimacy of Christ, because we've been offended in that area. And so now we don't know how to experience true intimacy when we're coming to the Lord. And so we're saying, God, I give you me, I give you a yes, I surrender all. But really, we got that thing that we're holding on to because it's too painful and I don't want to look at it. I don't want to deal with it and I don't want to bear it. And God is like, but you got to give me that thing. And that thing requires a process, and you need to go through the process for that to actually, you release that for him to come in. People don't want to do that. They don't want to do that.
You got me stirred over here. You absolutely right. Sometimes people, they don't want to get down to the meat and potatoes of them and things. And right today, a lot of people, they hate to be around them. The family member that, I'm just gonna be honest, they hate
Yeah.
and things, and she takes If something go on, she's still right there. We trying to hook grown people in the family stuff. 30 and 40 years old and what have you. It's a lot of rage that is there. And so I don't know if by the mother not listening to her at that time when she was little or something, 50, or maybe, I don't know, 60 years ago or what have you. I don't know what age it was that this occurred with her, but what have you. But if we're going to church, we got to be listening. Our keys, our ears got to be on, even though they may not offer a women empowerment in that church or something. There ought to be something of the word of God that should be able to reflect and resonate with her thinking, to be able to say, you know what, this is it right here. And even though we can say forgiveness is a process. It's not just something
Process, yes.
blink and stuff and it just go away overnight, but it's a process. And you have to, and like you said, we don't want God to come in and be intimate. We don't want him to let him down on the inside of that situation. So everything that tries to come up, that tries to, maybe address it, we put a barrier up and what have you. And so, you sympathize with women that go through things like that have suffered, they still are suffering. Like I said, this lady is about 72 years old, still suffering, still carrying something ever since she was, 50, 60 years ago and what have you. Because my thing is, if you have given this great leader that has did something to you that he shouldn't have done, if you have forgiven him, you should. And I think she said that she walked up to it, but you're still carrying the load though. When is the load gonna drop? Okay.
I think that I feel it so much. My eyes is watering up. I understand, because when I was assaulted, it wasn't by anybody in leadership. My mother didn't believe me.
Oh, wow.
And my mother was like, "Are you sure that you didn't want to sleep with them and you made reference to them and they turned you down, so now you're screaming rape? Are you sure you didn't solicit them? You decided, I want to do this, and now you're screaming rape." So the pain that you feel when people don't believe you. And let me say this, because I'm just going to be transparent on here. I was raped by a female. I wasn't raped by a man. So when you go through a situation like that and people are laughing at you, they're like, how did that happen? How did this happen? And so when you're going through it, and I went through the criminal justice system, they laughed at me there. I went through the whole process, right? And so and the person walked away because at the time the times was different. I wasn't in the lifestyle. It's something that happened to me. You understand what I'm saying? And so when people don't believe you, it's painful. And so now it's not only do you have to release the person, you have to forgive your parent, the person that you're saying, this person's supposed to have unconditional love for me, but they didn't believe me. But then I had to look at my mother and I had to say, okay, God, I'm expecting something from her that she can't give me because she wasn't taught it. And so when I started looking at how she was raised and how her mother raised her, and not even understanding everything that she's going through, but understanding some things that she's going through, I was able to say to my mother before she passed, I forgive you. I understand. I didn't walk your walk. You did the best that you could. You did the best, whatever. And you just never know. And so when I was I lived with anger for so long against my mother. I didn't talk to her for a certain amount of time, for years. Or when I did talk to her, it was kind of vague. And so God allowed for me to see her as, and I tell my children this all the time, before I was mom, I was Santeraa. Before I was auntie, I was Santeraa. And so I'm still an individual person. I may hold the title as mom. You may look at me and hold me at this level, but at the end of the day, I'm still an individual. I had to go through some things before I became your mother. And after I became your mother, I still had to go through some things that you don't see, but there's another side of me, because when you leave this house, I'm still going to be Santeraa, right? And so when you start looking at your parents like that, then it's easier to forgive, because I can't understand everything that you've gone through. And so maybe some of the anger is still stemming from, because I'm still holding my mother responsible, because she was supposed to protect me. She was supposed to be there. But if she didn't know how to protect herself, if she went through something similar in her life, and she felt like if she said something, did something that maybe her status, maybe the people wouldn't believe her because she went through something. Maybe you don't know. You know what I mean? I've learned the things about my mother, domestic violence situations that she had that I didn't even know if you're not aware. I just thought she had migraines. I didn't know she was stabbed in the head. You know what I mean? So when you start to learn certain things, then you're like, okay, God, I can't hold on to this because she's a soul just like I am. She's an individual just like I am. She's not going to stand before God and say, well, God, I had my children to take care of. No, because she still had to be an individual and live her life because that's the life she had to give an account to. And so when you start to look at it like that, when it's multiple people aligned and attached to your assault or attached to whatever trauma that you're going through, you have to learn to say when you forgive, it's not just forgiving that person, it's everything else that's attached to it. Everybody else that's attached to it. Because if you're holding on to that little thing, you're still leaving a gateway and an opening for the enemy to come in and take residence in that area because you didn't release everything. I gave God a little bit, I ain't give him a lot. I released a little bit. I ain't released it all. And so now you're still wondering, why am I still dealing with this stuff? Because it wasn't all released. And again, that's a part of the process that we don't want to go through. But it's necessary for us to walk in the freedom of the Lord.
That's good. Come on, sheep. Woo! Come on here. You're right. You're right about that. I wanted to be able to, because it was something that you brought out, and it was going to be my next question anyway. But it was exactly similar to the situation, the trauma that you had experienced. So it was the way, and I mean, she's incarcerated. She'll be incarcerated for life. This is a non-Christian woman. I don't think that she knew anything about God. Perhaps maybe you have heard of this case. I think it was in Wayne County in Michigan, and I think this was back maybe, I don't know, 2016 or something a little bit better. But she went to her mom, same topic, same situation, went to her mom, talked to her about she was assaulted by her mom's best friend, which was a female also. And it caused so much rage to develop into this mother, which we don't condone anyone that does wrong things. We don't condone anyone that commits crimes or what have you. But at the same time, my heart still goes out to her. I even reached out to her and sent her some cards. There is so much rage on the inside of this woman. She went in there and put her children in the freezer and she froze them to death. The first one was not even, just hear me out. The first one was not even discovered. The rest of the children, I think she had 4 children. The rest of them knew that the older sister was in the freezer. Okay, and the mother, I feel that, and so it was 2 of them. It was 2 children was put in there, and a total they was in there for like 3 whole years in her. This is not no maniac. She's not some type of person where she's a schizophrenic. This woman went through some trauma with her mother's best friend, and her mother would not listen to her. She carried all of that grief and anger. She could not talk to nobody. She even said it on the news, if I can't talk. And so she thought that her older children were touching her younger son. And so all of that stuff blew up. All of it blew up. And so, and like I said, she didn't respond back to me or what have you. And I'm gonna still reach out to her, maybe send her a card of encouragement. I don't condone what she do, but I do understand why she did it.
And that's what we have to realize too. It's not, let me say, I think we missed that part of ministry, and what you're doing is key. Because when Paul was in jail, the saints didn't question what he did. Why was he in there? They got together and started praying, right? And so that's how we need to operate in ministry. So you can't look at what they did. At the end of the day, we're still a soul, and we're still a soul. A soul still needs to be reached. You can't be, because that's what the problem. We get caught up in gospel. What did they do? Well, why they did? And see, I went through that too, right? And so when I tell people, like, I went through that too, I was incarcerated for 90 days, and I did not have the backing that I thought that I would have had. And people were like, well, what did she do? Did she do it? Or didn't she do it? Did she da, 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 da? And so I had to, when I came home, I had to go to my pastor and I had to say, I forgive you. I said, I was hurt. I was hurt because you wouldn't vouch for my character, and I directed your choir. I stood and taught your Sunday school. I taught your chapel at your Bible study. I never told you to vouch to say what I did or didn't do. I asked you, only thing I asked you to do was to vouch for my character, because what was going on, I shouldn't even been where I was at, right? And so when all the smoke cleared, he apologized. But it's not looking at the offense of what someone's going through. It's looking at my sister or brother in Christ is in a situation, or this person is in a situation. Look beyond the action and look at the need. There was a girl who went into a school and she shot up the school recently, and the teacher walked up to her and said, give me the gun. The teacher stayed in the school. It was a shooting in the school. I can't remember where it was at. And the teacher grabbed the gun from the student, and she just went and she just began to hug her. And it wasn't the fact, because everybody else, the cops came in and took the little girl. But she said, this girl needs to be loved on. It's something else that was the trigger. It was something else that wasn't dealt with that caused that action to happen. So it's not condoning what she did. We're not saying that it was good that she went to the school and did whatever. It's saying that there's something else that's lying deeper inside of her, that's the issue that we need to deal with. That's the area that we need to pray for. And how you detailed, yeah, this happened, but prior to, she went through this hurt. She went through this trauma. She went through this pain. And that's what you're looking at. And that's this target area of prayer. Because when you start dealing in those areas, the Lord can break up the stony heart, right? And give us a heart of flesh. So that's what needs to happen. We need to stop looking at people at, well, what did they do? And start looking at them, well, I can be Emmanuel. I can be God's representation on this earth. And I'm not going to look at their action. That's what advocates do, not from a church standpoint, but we don't blame the person. We sit there and we deal with the emotions of what they're going through. And if we was to pick up those same principles in Christendom as we walk out and we walk with people, evangelism, not always the point, but look at the underlying issue of what somebody hurt, depression, oppression, whatever. Don't look at the vice either. What's under the vice of what they're doing? Oh, they're a wino. Oh, they're alcohol, drug addict. They're this. What is the underlying issue that we need to pray for, that we need to target so that they could become free? Again, release of my secret, right? Because it's all about the things that we bury, especially as women, that we don't deal with. And then we pile layers on top of layers on top of layers. And then what happens? Eventually it's going to spill over and we're going to explode in some type of way, but it will guaranteed will manifest itself some kind of way.
Absolutely. And that's what this mother did. She came to a full explosion, even in the courtroom during her trial. Her name is Michelle Blair. And so even in the courtroom, she just went in there. She got on the fathers who was not there and supportive. The house was in such a total disarray when they came and found the children there. I mean, like I said, that's her name, the freezer mom killer. And so I didn't see that part. I saw the heart of what she was going through, the anger and the frustration that was coming out. Her mom did not listen to her as to what she was going through, and no one else sat down and took the time just to listen. This wouldn't have went that way. This wouldn't have happened if somebody would have took the time to listen. Non-Christian, but it does not matter.
Yeah.
We take the time to be supportive to each and every one. So that is so wonderful as to how you exemplified that and explained that to us on today. So we want to be able to talk about the next chapter for Santeraa. What are some of the things you want to do in the next chapter for women?
So I have my book. My book is entitled Release of My Secret. It's a devotional that supports one's healing process. And so every couple months we journey out. We just started actually on Facebook journeying through the book. So if anyone's listening and they type it in, Release of My Secret, I think it's Release of My Secret, but they'll see it's a private group. They can always join. I always say that the book is not required in order for you to join the group, because we are walking through this thing together. We're all helping one another. It's not about that. I have a couple of events coming up. I'm planning a couple of events coming up. I have a couple of speaking engagements. You can always go on my website, or if you follow me on social media, I post everything on there between Instagram. It's my name and last initial. You'll be able to find me. My website is my first name, Santeresaw, SANTERESAW.com. You'll be able to find my information on there. I always have a lot of things going on, or people call me to go speak or virtually. I just got back from Indiana a few weeks ago, and I was able to do something out there, and I do a podcast myself, which is called Releasing My Secret, the podcast. So it's just my thing is that we all, again, everybody identifies as survivors, but they don't like to identify as a survivor of the process. And so my ultimate goal is that no matter where I speak at, no matter what my podcast is, no matter what we're doing, that just like if you're in church, there's a call to action, there's an altar call. And so just like at the end of when you speak to me, I always love for there to be a call to action, because now that you've exposed all these things, we need to know how to direct you and where to direct you to, so that you can walk in the freedom of that Christ has called us to.
Mm-hmm. And so with the last, I got a couple more questions. And so this is something that I did not get. And what have you. And so in your perspective, why is it that you feel that we as Christian leaders, we conceal certain things of such, in the church? Sometimes people may sit there and be looking at it. Sometimes, I have saw leaders, I have witnessed leaders, well, I would say it is condoning. They sit there and see sexual harassment going on in the church. Why is it that you feel that so many things are hidden in the church, especially when it's, women mostly make up about 80% of the body in your medium-sized churches? They may, women's always been the ones that go to church first, and then sometimes the men, it'll be 20% that's sitting in the pews or in the pulpit or whatever, or in the choir. Mm-hmm. So in your perspective, why is it that we are so private about touching subjects as such, and it needs to be brought to the forefront? Why is it that we're so holier than thou, that we overlook these things and we push it up under the rug and we say, that's not our problem, that's not our business, this don't have anything to do with me, let them deal with it at home?
Let me say, I think it's cultural. A lot of churches do embrace it. There's some churches out there that have programs to help. They offer counseling services in their church.
Okay.
As a culture, we was taught whatever goes on in my house stays in my house. Don't you dare talk about what happens in my family. Don't you dare go out this house and talk about anything. And so what happens is now you have people who are building ministries, who are building churches, who are building, all kinds of things, and they got their own hidden issues and traumas that they've been dealing with, but they couldn't talk about it because whatever went on in their house stayed in their house. And how dare you go to a counselor? You can't go to counseling because that's taboo. And so when you get somebody that will actually stand up and say, you know what, it's time for this to stop and for us to move forward so that we all can heal. There's a lot of people operating from a place of hurt right now, and then you'll find some churches where they do offer the counseling services and they have that in-house, and people don't know, they don't like to talk about it, but you mostly find there's certain things. Let me say, I'm a transparent person, right? So at one point in time, I ain't like to talk about, I was talking about, you can talk to me about anything, we ain't talking about relationships. Why did I say that? Because that was an area that I never dealt with, right? Because that was an area that was sensitive to me, because I still had struggles in that area, and I'm still working through it to today, right? And so I'll say, listen, that's your business. We ain't talking about that. And so you'll find that a lot of people, when they're struggling in an area, they don't want to talk about it, because now you're going to cause for me to have to face the issues that I've been dealing with, right? You're going to force me to have to deal with the hurt that I've been carrying for so long, because I just didn't know what to do, because I was taught to suppress it. And I couldn't talk about it because my mama said she was going to get me if I talked about what happened in her house. But Uncle Joe did such and such and such to me, but I couldn't, oh no. Or, we're going to handle it our way because it's our family business and we're going to take care of it in-house, and how dare you talk about it. And so these are the people that are carrying things. And if they talk about it, it's going to cause some old thoughts and feelings to rise up. And so you have to get to the point to where people can say, I'm ready to heal. I'm ready to get through this process. Even if you're not ready to discuss it with other people, listen, go get healing somewhere else, come back and help others so that others can heal. Because that's a lot of times people don't talk about things that's sensitive to them. You'll hear people, even if a person's inexperienced, they'll still talk about it. Like, I don't really know much about that area, but I can still talk about it. But when somebody has something personal in that area they haven't dealt with yet, they haven't scratched the surface, that they're still dealing in some type of, it's some type of hard feelings there's gonna make me cry, might make me get angry. I don't want to talk about that. I ain't going there. People like, I ain't going there right now. Like I ain't doing it right now. That's what people do, because it's issues that they don't want to deal with. And when you start seeing that, and when you don't see those things addressed in some type of way, and it might not even be, it's deeper than a sexual assault. It could be something that violated your trust, that caused that type of trauma, right? Distrust trauma, betrayal trauma. Joseph went through it. His brothers betrayed him. We ain't the only ones, but people just don't like to do it because there's so much betrayal, so much trauma that's happened throughout the word of God. But at the end, we always see victory has always prevailed. And when you look at it like that against trauma, again, trauma is something that disturbs the normalcy of your life. So you see so many stories of trauma in the Bible, but people only want to talk about certain traumas. They don't want to talk about everything. They don't want to talk about certain areas. Well, what about, oh man, I can't think about his name. Who told the angels, you can have my daughters. You can have them. You can't take the spies. I must hide the spies, but you can have my daughters. Right? What about that trauma? See, it's discussed in the Bible. Like, those things happen. Well, father was selling up, giving up his kids, his own children. And so I just find that a lot of ministries don't talk about it because the leaderships, they don't want to deal with their own personal issues that they've dealt with, encountered, whether it was personally with them, or maybe it was with a parent, maybe it was with a sibling. It's something that's close to home that causes them to say, I'm gonna just let somebody that's person. I'm gonna pray for you, sister. I'm gonna just pray for you. God's gonna get you through. No, I need counseling. I know he can get me through it, but I need counseling too. I need to get this out. I need to get it up. It's out. You can't hold on to it because it's going to eat you alive inside if you hold on to it. You got to get it out. You can't just not talk about it. You got to get it. That's why people are suffering. They operate in a hurt place in ministry, a total hurt place, because they don't want to get it out. They can't talk about it. They don't have a safe place to go to get it out. They just can't. They can't do it. And so that's what they're struggling. I know I just gave you a whole earful. I'm sorry.
You could. I said that was the last question, but I don't think so. So when we were coming up, this is good. Thank you, God. When we were coming up, we lived adjacent. This is not to put anybody's business out here. We're trying to get women to get free. When we were coming up, we lived beside this individual, across the street from this individual. The wife was not churchy, but she went to church. But the husband was. But we still had some stuff that was going on too. So after service would be over, or sometimes if we didn't see her at church, I think we were probably about 15 or 16, my sister and I, after church, she was a little bit older than us, maybe about 25 at the time. I was like, why she didn't come to church today? But he would be there. And we went in there and we knocked on the door. Just kept knocking, because she was like a big sister to us. We grew up in a small community. Most of it was more like elderly people and what have you, so it wasn't a lot of kids in the community. And so we would always go and spend time with her and what have you. And so we went over there and knocked on the door. It was like, that's not her, not coming to church today. And so we just kept knocking. She never did come to the door. She never did. And we kept knocking. We stood there and stood there. And 15 minutes later, she come to the door, and that woman's eyes. Her husband was in the pulpit. Her husband was preaching. He had just got through preaching the sermon for that day. And that woman came to the door and stuff. Her eyes looked just like raccoons. She was dotted all the way around. And so at that time, we were going to where we were not safe. So I did give her some advice as a person being 15 or 16 years old. I said, I will start coming to church and stuff, and I exposed him. He didn't got the business being in the pulpit and stuff, and he fighting on his wife, and her eyes are black and blue, and she can't come to church, which I know that's the wrong advice to be able to give to individuals. And so sometimes women suffer so much in silence.
Yes, we do. We do suffer in silence, and I think it's the shame, and I think it goes back to, we suffer in silence because people are judgmental. They they tell us what we woulda, coulda, shoulda done. And I say that all the time. Like, I say, somebody asked me the other day, they said, well, what would you say to someone whose friend went through something traumatic and they want to help them out, but they don't know what to say? And I said, the best thing when you don't know what to say is don't say nothing at all. Because until you've walked in their shoes, until you've been in that situation, it's easy I had a client that just came to me, and she had a really bad experience through counseling. And we started our sessions, and it was kind of like, well, like, how do you handle this? Like, are you going to judge me because I went through this? Or, are you going to tell me I woulda, coulda, shoulda called the police? I should have left. I should have this. And I'm like, listen, when you're in the midst of something, you're not thinking about the police. You're thinking about, how am I going to survive the next hour? Right? You're not thinking about when I was, when I was in my last marriage, and I was going through the accusations, and I was going through everything. Number one, church people always tell you love cover a multitude, right? They tell you that. Then they tell you other stuff, the wife sanctifies her husband. So you're holding on still, and I'm going through all this mental abuse because maybe he'll be sanctified, right? And I'm holding on because people give you this advice when they're not in the midst of that situation. It is not God's will for me to live a miserable life. No, he wants me to prosper and be in health, even as my soul prospers. And I'm not saying that I condone divorce or anything like that. What I'm saying is that God wants me to be in a content place. He wants me to be in a happy place, to enjoy this one life that I have to live. Because, I don't got no more after this. I ain't a cat. So, at the end of the day, I really feel like women suffer in silence because they feel like they don't have nowhere to go. Are they really going to believe me? If I tell you that my husband was a pastor and he was beating on me, would you believe me? Or would you stand by his side because he done preached and prophesied and laid hands, even though gifts are given without repentance, right? Even though it's going to be people that's going to stand before the Lord and say, Lord, didn't I prophesy in your name? And he's still going to say, depart from me. People don't look at it like that. They're looking at a person from the standpoint of where they're at right now, not understanding that it's going to be people at the gate that's going to be like, God, but I prayed in your name, I cast out demons, and he going to still say, depart from me. So what makes it any different that I'm telling you that this man is beating me up, even though he's a minister? So we have to stop just not believing people or looking at people from a judgmental stance, because the person that we're accusing is a person that we look at and we're saying that they're operating with all these gifts and all this anointing and things like that. Listen. That's what the word says. Gifts are given without repentance, right? Because we're all born with gifts. What are we using it for?
Right. That's right. And so I do agree.
I'm sorry. I get excited.
No, I want you to go on and bring the meat and potatoes out, because I do agree with you. I've tried to help women in the past. You have women, they will have ministries, their first ladies. Oh, I'm going to put on this and things. I'm like, you're not qualified to be able to lead women because you're not even mature yet yourself. And so, like you were saying and stuff, you can't tell no one anything. I have learned within the last maybe 10 years that scriptures, we don't go to people with scriptures when they're hurting. People don't want to hear anything about any scriptures. All they want is a hug, they want a shoulder to cry on. I mean, you bring that when the time presents itself. And so this one individual, I tried to talk to her and things. You have to get yourself in alignment. You have to get in alignment in order for to keep other women. In order for you to be able to be impactful to another woman, you have to have gone through something yourself. You can't just sit there and just get up and pick up something and go read of it and stuff and say, Jesus saves the world and things. What is it that impacted? And like I told her, I said, that's the reason why your events turns to a flop, basically, because you don't have nothing that's coming out on the inside of you that's gurgitating to these women that are in your pews. They're not going to feel anything. That whatever your topics are, it has to edify those women that are sitting in the pews. If people do not get it, they will write books, have not gone through anything, have not been processed, they have not been matured in any area. And this is where you try to help them to be able to understand that, so they won't come to an open shame.
That's so true. I tell people that's why I'm a trauma recovery coach. When I sit back and think about things I've been through, and I was like, I don't stroke people all the time. What I mean by that is, I'm not always like, oh my gosh, because what I've learned is that some of the trauma that I've gone through, being homeless, losing stuff, whatever, was mismanagement with what God gave me, right? So every trauma wasn't something that was just like, oh my God, it happened. No, and then it was days that I was going through things, and I was like, God, take this thorn from my side. Like, how much more? And I really don't like when people say, well, God never puts no more on you than you could bear. Because I'd be like, well, how much do he think I could bear? But what I've learned in the midst of that is that when I'm in the midst of a situation and I can't bear it, that means that I need to go to the Lord, who is my strength, who will give me the strength to bear it. I need to rest in him. I need to be still and know that he's God, because I'm trying to push through something I can't carry. No, I can't bear it, but he can, because he's the burden bearer. He told me to cast all of my cares on him because he cares about me. So why am I trying to carry it anyway? Of course I can't bear it. Of course he ain't going to put no more on me than I can bear, because I ain't supposed to be bearing it. He's bearing it for me, right? How many times he already told us, be still, know that I'm God. Stand still, see the salvation of the Lord. But we still want to fight, because that's in us. We still want to try to put our hands in it. But he knows the thoughts and the plans that he has for us. He says that my ways aren't your ways. My thoughts aren't your thoughts. And so when we start looking at it like that and looking at situations like that, so when we go to him, we know that his word is not going to return unto him void, but it's going to accomplish everything that is sent out to do. What are you doing while you're in the midst of your process of what you're going through? What words are you declaring? The Bible says, if thou shalt decree a thing, it shall be established. What are you speaking out of your mouth? Because the Bible says that faith cometh by hearing, hearing by the word of God. So what words are you speaking that's building the faith while you're in the midst of your situation? And so again, I'm just, listen, I get excited. It is because it's so passionate. It's passionate to me because so many people are walking around bound. So many people are walking around with everything that's suppressed, because society teaches us to just bury it. Keep going, keep moving forward. Girl, you're strong. You can fight this. Girl, you done came through everything else. No, I didn't come through it. I did not come through it. I didn't come through it. I suppressed it. I didn't realize that, me personally, Santeraa, we talk about Santeraa, I can't talk about nobody else. I didn't realize that until last year when my father died. When my father died, I realized it. I realized that I had things. Now, I already had the book out. Book's been out. I've been talking about releasing my secret. I'm talking to people, everything. But when my dad died, every single thing I'm telling you had started to resonate. And I said, I'm leading worship every week. I'm not okay. Because I got stuff that was buried, that emotions and childhood things and things started coming out. And I'm like, God, what is this? And that's when he taught me about Jesus Wept, right? Because then I took that time. I took 6 months. I put my business on pause. I put everything on pause. And I continue to worship because I believe that there's healing through worship. So I put my business on pause and everything else. My job that I was working a 9 to 5, I took a mental health leave. And I worked on Santeraa. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. That's why my passion is more ignited now than it was before, because I understand we hide it, we bury it, we don't push forward. We trying to help people out in our mess. You can't help nobody else out in your mess. How you going to give advice when you still hurt in that place? So the advice that you're giving them is not even a seasoned advice. It's not even advice that they can really hold on to. It's nothing that of substance. You're talking from experience of what you wouldn't have went through, because you went through it, and because of your pain that you went through, and now you're trying to advise me in that area when you probably shouldn't even be giving me no advice. You can't tell me what to do when you ain't come through it. Tell me something that you lived through. Tell me something that you've gone through. Tell me that. That's why people say, oh, you've been homeless. Yeah, I was homeless because I like to go gamble. And, every time God met my need and gave me extra money and I could have paid that bill off, I decided to take that money and go to the casino. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was true. Yeah, it just is what it is. And so, granted, I had situations to where I really was homeless, but then, that last time hit a little bit different. It hit different because I didn't tell nobody I wasn't okay. My husband just left me, and I had everybody, was there, and I had situations going on. And instead of me telling somebody I wasn't okay, I decided to suppress it in my own way. And that's what I did. And I wound up losing everything. So, sometimes you got to look at situations and be like, did I put myself in here? God is a way maker, right? God does provide my needs, but did I manage the things that he put in my hands for me to do right?
Yeah.
Or did I mismanage it? And now I'm going back to him, asking him to help me out again when he's already met my need over and over again. Even after I lost it, still met my need.
Mhm.
You get what I'm saying? So I mean, it's just, girl, woo, I'm sorry.
Absolutely. It's good. We just, and as you state, we suppress it. That's the right word. We suppress things that we should not be suppressing. And sometimes we don't want people to know. And that's the reason why, this is why sometimes if I'm going through something, if the heat gets up under me, I know who to call. I'll put it like that. I know if the fire gets up under my foot so hot, I do know how to call someone for prayer and casting out devils, and so
Yes.
we have to, be mindful of that. But I try to also teach individuals to help them to understand you cannot take a woman and lead her across a bridge if you've never been across the bridge yourself. And so, a lot of times that individuals feel that they can build these big conglomerates in the church and they have not gone through anything. They have not suffered anything. They have not allowed God to process them. They have not allowed God to come in and press them, through certain things. They want, yeah. And what is this with when it seems like that women that have gone through and other people sitting back, their own lookers too, but they'll come right behind them and try to pick up what it is that they're doing and try to use it in their ministry. They'll try to use it in whatever that they're doing. And I try to teach them that too. It's not going to work. Each woman is unique. Okay, God made each woman unique. Yes, women have to go through battles. Yes, women have to, go through certain things, or they have gone through certain things. Just like Vicky Weiner said, no cross, no crown. You don't get the, nothing from nothing leaves nothing. But it's enough of the gift that God has given on the inside of us that I should not even have to look on your website page and say, you know what, I like what she's doing, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to try what Santeraa doing and what have you. Women don't know how to obey God, be obedient to God, listen to God, and find out what their own gifts and talents are so they can be able to manifest the kingdom. And then, you know what? A lot of individuals have built a lot. Look, I'm going to share this with you thing. This lady that I had interviewed probably about 5 or 6 years ago, this woman was married. She always played with her daughter every day when she would come in. Kind of like the story of the I can't think of the name that the Pace sisters, kind of something like that happened. She came in one day and she always would kick her little daughter. So her daughter was 17, so you know how we play with our children and stuff.
Mhm.
Took her feet and kind of brushed it across the back of her feet and stuff, because she was laying on the floor watching television. This is something that happened every day. Okay, so she come in one day. I'm going to go in and I'm going to play a little around with her a little bit. The daughter didn't move. The daughter stayed still. The daughter didn't was just she was more she could not do anything. She was still. The daughter was dead. The daughter had passed away. The husband gets up and that's his opportunity to leave the wife. Come on, girl. That was his opportunity. Let me be quiet. He may have already had that in his mind at first. Come on here now. Let's be honest. We being transparent, because I know that a man with good common sense, knowing that his wife, or I don't know if it was he was the father of the child, but I know one thing, he walked up and he left away. But the woman turned it around. Now she's like a six-figure annual coach. She took her passion. I mean, she took her pain and she turned it into something so beautiful, that she's working with today. So, it's kind of sad when you have to go through things like that, not even knowing what may have been in his heart from the beginning. That's what I'm trying to get to right there. She explained it on the broadcast. She doing, I think it's still on one of my segments or episodes and things. She went through that. And she said, look, I can't stay here. God cannot leave me here. And that woman got up from there and she whipped herself. Do you hear me? She whipped herself after the death of her daughter, after the divorce of her husband. She went in there and she picked up the fragments that was left and she was able to move on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I commend her for that. I commend her for that. I sit there after my brother died, my father left my mother probably about a week after. And so I commend her for that because of the pain that I watched my mom go through was just surreal. And like you said, I was speaking to someone the other day, probably a couple weeks ago, and they said, I want to be a trauma recovery coach. And I'm like, no, you don't. Like, so because of the emotional toll that it takes. I'm not just a coach. I carry that. Some days I'm praying, some days I'm feeling what someone's going through. I'm on my phone and somebody's mind, come across me. Let me text them real quick. Let me see if they're okay. We can't be someone else. We can only be ourselves. We get lost because everybody's saying, I'm trying to find my purpose. I'm trying to find my way. I'm trying to find who I am. I'm trying to find what I'm supposed to be doing. But the Bible tells us that when we come to Christ, that we're supposed to lose ourselves. And so when we lose ourselves and we seek out Christ, God will direct us onto what we're supposed to be doing so that we're not going and doing everything else that wasn't in our purpose. We're not in a career that he didn't necessarily call us to. And so you don't want to mess up somebody's life. So let me say that. Yeah, I know y'all looking at coaches and y'all like, oh, they making money. No, every coach don't make money. And social media make everybody look good, especially with a nice picture, a good makeup job, and some filters. Everybody look good. My first couple flyers, I ain't had no clients, right? At all. But people like, girl, you doing your thing. They liking all of it. Don't get all kind of hearts and people sharing then people start cash apping me, asking me for money. Oh God, man, I spent about 5,000 advertising just so I can look good, right? Don't believe the hype. Not at all. And it's definitely not easy being a trauma recovery coach because again, like you said, it's taboo. People don't want to talk about their issues. They don't want to admit that I'm dealing with something from a hurt place. I'm dealing with this hard place. I don't want to talk about it, and so it's not like people always openly step up and want to talk. And I always tell people, it's confidential. I'm not, it is what we just gonna talk. We're gonna work through the process. Like this is what it is. People, and that's why you see tons of coaches, but it's the same thing in churches. You see tons of apostles, tons of bishops, tons of pastors, and then you see tons of churches closing down, tons of ministry. Now you see pastors committing suicide. Why? Because they weren't graced for that. That wasn't what they was called to. People walk in it because they want money. They think it's money there. Let me have all these services. Let me start calling people up saying, hey, I got my license. Can I come to your church and preach? Or, people saying, hey, I done went through this situation. I could talk to people now. When I started interviewing people for my podcast, people like, I want to come on. I want to release. I want to help out somebody. I'm talking to them. You still in your mess. How you going to help somebody else out and you still in it? You can't help me get free. But you want a name, you want a title, but you want to walk in mess. You want to walk in mess and pour that mess out on somebody else. That's not your calling. That's not your gifting. If you're struggling in it, do a reevaluation. I ain't saying that you ain't going to struggle sometimes. I've been a life coach for 5 years. I struggled my first 2 years until I identified as to what God called me to be, which was to work with trauma because I've been through something. And now I can. I'm not going to help you. I can help you with goals, but no, we're going to help to get you free. Then we can work on your goals because how you gonna work on goals and you still bound in this area? You don't want to deal with men, a male superior because you was raped 5 years ago. So you don't want to deal with men, but you want to operate in your own entrepreneurship. You don't want to, I don't want to do this. I want to do this in life. I want to have my own business. I want to be able to network, but I don't like her. I don't like this person. You got distrust. You got underlying issues that you need to deal with. And in order for you to move forward and to move past and so that you can be and walk in that fullness of life, there's some issues that you have to deal with.
Absolutely. Santeraa, we have enjoyed you today. We're going to have to try to get you back on this show. Okay?
I enjoyed coming on. Even though I had technical difficulties, I was like, oh, Lord. Oh, Lord.
We're going to have to try to get you back because that's what we look for. We look for individuals that are transparent to the women because that can get down as an ointment to whatever that they're going through. Just like I had to take castor oil, Father's John, all of that stuff when I was little. And
me too.
When you take it, it has to get all the way down in order for it to be able to work, and in order for the individual to be able to see results. So this is what we're all about. Transparency, being open. I like for the women to be open, for them to allow God to be able to use them as they see fit. So once again, before we go, share with the audience as how they can be able to connect with you.
Yes. So you can always follow me on Facebook. My business website is Inspired by You, LLC. Santeraa, Lakeisha is my name on Facebook. You can always DM me. Either or place is fine. But my friends' requests are filling up, so I don't want you to feel like I'm ignoring you. I just, it's follow my business. It's so much easier. You can always email me info@santeresaw.com or my website, which is santeresaw.com, and it's a contact me sheet that's on there. All of my information, all of my engagements are on there, and then I'm also on YouTube, which is Coach Santeraa W, and I am on Clubhouse, which is Coach Santeraa. So that's how you can kind of follow me. Again, because I do trauma recovery, if you message me, the message comes directly to me. It's not going to someone else. So at least give me at least 24 to 48 hours to respond, or I may respond and I might have to tell you I'll get back to you, but I will be able to contact you and let you know, whatever it is that I can assist you with.
Okay, great. So audience, we have learned a lot about trauma, about some secret things that women have to be able to bring out to the table in order for us to be able to be healed. And then we have learned about how important it's not to push everything up under the rug, but the healing process starts when we be able to share and talk about things. So we will see you on Women of Empowerment, hopefully next week, audience, at 10 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. And again, thank you, Santeraa.
Thank you. Thank you again.